I see quite a number of friends and colleagues here. The Vice Chancellor is present in the room. The Deputy Vice Chancellor is present in the room. Representative of various institutions here, of course, the British Council and other partners as well. Good morning. I'm very delighted that I'm able to come and we have this conversation, and I've forgotten my brother, the CEO of the Commission for University Education as well. This is a very important gathering for us. For obvious reasons, I have looked through the program that Tony and the team has come up with, and I think we're going to have a different conversation, and that's very important for me. I also asked Tony whether they have, whether we have private sector in the room, and I know we do have few. We hope to be able to bring more in future so that we can be able to have this dialogue together. Indeed, the issue of entrepreneurship is very, very critical for us. So this gathering, in my opinion, is not just another summit, so to speak. We've been having one summit after another. It is a national conversation about Kenya's future, about how we educate, innovate, and compete in the rapid changing world. And we always look at indicators, the Global Competitive Index, in terms of how much or how we've been able to contribute in knowledge globally, and how we've been able to contribute in terms of the Global Innovation Index, for example. And you know the numbers don't lie. So there are ways and means of which we need to address this subject and be able to change the situation on the ground. In my opinion, Kenya has made it very clear that we do not aspire to remain a developing economy. And His Excellency, the President, has clearly indicated that our ambition is to become a globally competitive nation, if you like, an industrialized nation. And I want to say this is clearly and confidently today that the ambition will be won or lost in our universities, our research institutions, and our innovation ecosystem, so to speak. The President has already indicated to us it is unacceptable that 60 years before, 60 years ago, we were at par with the Asian tigers. Our friends have leapfrogged to be where they are today, and you can see our position. We were discussing with Tony, just to give you an example, of the Global Innovation Index as one of those indicators where we've been sliding down. But we know why, because either we are not submitting adequate data or we are submitting sort of obsolete data, so to speak. And that's why we've been badly affected in terms of our position. However, when you look on the ground, when I see all these brilliant minds in this room and the young innovators that I meet on day-to-day basis, I'm extremely impressed. And that's why we need to ask ourselves, how can we be able to do business in a different way? The President has indicated that we want to go a Singapore way, and people think it's a laughing matter, but I have the conviction and believe it is possible. It is possible because it is you and me that is going to take this mantle to the next level. It is through the universities, both public and private, through the TVETs and through the innovation ecosystem, building synergies, collaboration and cooperation, and breaking the silos so that we can be able to work together. Ladies and gentlemen, you know very well that this country, Kenya, is a relatively young nation by all standards. Over 75% of our population are categorized at the age of 35. At the same time, when you look at the industries, the MSMEs account for over 90% of businesses in the country. What are we doing on that space? Yet, youth unemployment and underemployment remain stubbornly high. And that's why I want to challenge Commission for University Education. As we look at the ranking, my brother, maybe we need to look at the ranking in terms of employability as well. We have to interrogate and ask ourselves, what do the industry really need? One time when I was discussing with the private sector, Kenya Private Sector Alliance, they indicated to me sometimes back that whatever we produce from our universities, they have to go back and do a little bit of retooling and reskilling. Is that the same today? I hope not. Every year, tens of thousands of graduates enter labor market that cannot absorb them. So we need to think outside the box and where possible, create a new box. We have to look at really what does the society need so that we can be able to respond to that. And I know one of the requirements in the universities is to ensure whatever curricula we put on board, it has to ensure that it has gone through a process and be able to appreciate that we are responding to the needs of the society. I know we have universities where courses are being offered and there are no students that respond to that. So this reality tells us something very important. And this is the message. We cannot educate for employment alone. We must educate for enterprise, innovation, and value creation. We have to look at the past and where we are and where we want to go. For many years, our universities, in my opinion, have done a very good job of producing knowledge, research papers, degrees, and expertise. The days where you produce or publish or perish are gone. People are talking about patents. People are talking about innovations. I visited Kipi the other day. I got a shock of my life that most of patents that are being registered in Kenya are not actually from us Kenyans, but they are from foreigners. And that's why we are having this conversation with them, that we can be able to come to the universities and be able to have more intellectual property rights sort of offices and units, so that we can really see what does it take for us to be able to take these ideas to prototype towards commercialization. But again, it all begins in the universities and the training institutions so that we can be able to train graduates that will be able to go out and address the societal challenges. We must be able to produce technologists and minimize being consumers of those technologies. Globally and in Kenya, we have learned hard lessons. Knowledge without application does not transform any economies. It's not just about producing graduates for the sake of it, but we must be able to have these graduates that will go outside there and address the challenges of our society. The old education model, strong in theory but weak in practice, is no longer sufficient. And I think we all believe and trust this is the case now. And it's not just a Kenyan challenge. When I was at the UN for almost 10 years, I experienced that in quite a number of African countries. But I've always said this is not our standard. And that's why we are looking at the Asian tigers. We are looking at countries that we were at par with them, and now they are where they are. So we must be able to leapfrog. The world is not about to slow down because we are behind. We must leapfrog to catch up. Even the most advanced economies are redesigning higher education to close the gap between 1, research and commercialization, 2, graduation and employability, and 3, innovation and enterprise. Kenya has now reached that same moment of transition. We must be able to change what we are doing, otherwise the change will change us. It's very important that we interrogate this. I mean, every time you go outside there, you hear the public talking about the education, right from the kindergarten, primary, upper level, middle level, and of course the universities as well. So I'm very glad that we are interrogating this in an ecosystem sort of manner, that we all bring stakeholders around the table and be able to address this so that we can get very clear solution. And this is why His Excellency, the President, has created this State Department, relatively new State Department, to look at the science and research across board, not just the scientific research, but research across board, and be able to look at innovation to do what? So that we can be able to unlock the full potential of this sector and be able to contribute to the knowledge and be able to have knowledge-based economy and be able to contribute in the space of innovation that can spur, if you like, wealth and be able to create jobs as well. Under the bottom-up economic transformative agenda, science, research, and innovation is no longer peripheral. It is central to so many things, including the MSMEs, which is one of the pillars, of the 5 pillars of a better plan. Youth and women employment is another issue. Look at something that is very close to our chest, food security. It's unacceptable that at the moment we are importing food worth 500 billion Kenya shillings. Yet we have so many institutions, universities and research institutions that are working on the space of food safety, food production, and of course, ultimately aiming at food sovereignty. We have departments that are offering agricultural courses. I visited Kalro the other day, and we were having the same conversation. So I'm looking at a way of how we can be able to build the clusters around different thematic areas. One of them being food, for example, security, and bring everybody around the table that deals with matters to do with agricultural, both crops and livestock. We must be able to address this. If we cannot address the issue of food security, just to pick one, for example, how are we going to be independent, so to speak? Of course, the next one is the issue of health. That we have almost 43, 44 cases of cancer on annual basis, and we are losing almost 23 Kenyans on annual basis as a result of cancer, just to pick one. And now we are bringing again within the ecosystem. I visited Kemri, and we want to bring all the universities that have got medical schools so that we can be able to work together and address this challenge, this monster. If we don't have a healthy sort of nation, there is no way that we're going to see the Singapore that we are dreaming of. So it's very important that we have a healthy nation. It's very important that we can be able to address such very important areas of food security, among others as well. Allow me to highlight 3 concrete actions we are already taking. 1, we are embedding entrepreneurial skills, digital influencing, problem solving into university curricula, not as selective, but as core competencies. And I want to encourage universities under the leadership of Commission for University Education to be able to interrogate every time these causes are brought to your direction. We need to ask ourselves, how are these going to really solve the challenges of the society? Secondly, we are strengthening the industry-university collaboration. We've been talking for such a long time, linkaging universities with industries. We need to understand the language of the industrialist vis-a-vis the language that we use in the university. We must be able to understand what are the needs outside there so that we can be able to produce graduates that are going to address those challenges and be able to collaborate with the universities. So curricula, research, and student projects respond directly to market and societal needs. If you like, the socialization of science. And I'm very glad to see quite a number of students, and many thanks, Tony. I know this was deliberate, that we bring the co-pilots, I like to call the youth co-pilots, into this journey of transforming Kenya to the first world economy. Thirdly, we are investing in future through policies. Kenya has already developed, as you probably know, the National AI Intelligence Strategy, and now we are moving towards AI policy, ensuring that our graduates, our creators, are not just consumers of advanced technology. And we're also looking at the science diplomacy so that we can be able to take full advantage of the internationalization of science. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. We must be able to collaborate at the smallest level possible, the national, the regional, and at international level as well. So what I'm also trying to say is transformation does not begin with student alone. It begins with leadership. And I'm glad, Tony, that we have decided to do both bottom-up and top-down approach, where we are discussing with the students. We are also bringing the leadership around the table. And I'm very glad that the Vice Chancellors, every time we call you from both public and private, you do respond to our call. And that's why through Kenya, we deliberately started by training, if you like, or empowering, or if you like, reminding the Vice Chancellors. You are fully aware of this. I like to use the word reminding the Vice Chancellors and Deputy Vice Chancellors, university leadership, and faculty champions in terms of how we need to embrace this entrepreneurial education approach. Today, through the collaboration with the network of entrepreneurial institutional leadership, what Tony has just spoken about, 25 universities are actively participating in this program, Startup Schools and Innovation Club. And we want to expand in that space. And I'm very, very thankful to the partners here around the table. And please continue working with us so that we can be able to scale it up to the highest possible level. This is how systems change from top across institution and into classrooms. If we get right, Kenya has unique opportunity. We can become the East African hub for entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial talent, a leader in agri-tech, climate innovation, health innovation, and digital enterprise. A country where research does not end on the shelf, but becomes a startup, jobs, exports, and solution. But this will require a change of mindset. And I really want to spend a minute on this. It's not that we don't know what we are doing, but since I have also returned back into this system, and I'm very pleased to see very familiar faces in this room, and whenever I go outside, one of the things that we must be able to do is the cultural change. The change of mindset, want to do things in a different way, wanting to ensure that we can be able to look at the key performance indicators and asking ourselves on the trajectory of transforming Kenya to the first world economy. Are we on track? And if not, then we pause and ask ourselves, what are the things that we need to do differently? Hence, universities must see themselves as innovation anchors, not ivory towers. And this is a very clear testimony that Vice Chancellors can sit with us here and be able to have this conversation. Research must be rewarded for impact and commercialization, and not just publication alone. I mean, I know I've been in the university setup for a long time. It is not difficult in this country to become a full professor. You only need 6 or 7 publications. But the question is, what is in those publications? How are those publications contributing and impacting in the societal issues? So we really need to interrogate this and be able to see, as we contribute towards knowledge-based economy, how can we also be able to bring on the table the entrepreneurship and innovation? Entrepreneurship must be taught across disciplines from first year onwards. I remember when I was in the university and a full professor, I was told, sir, now you can go and teach the 4th years and the postgraduate. And I decided to go and teach the first years because that's where it begins. Sometimes we forget this, that we are so experienced that we can be able to have an effective communication in science. And we think that we can leave the first years with due respect to relatively lower cadre staff. We should be able to know that it's the foundation that is very important. That me as a full professor, I would go to class and teach the first years so that we could have those conversations, so that they can see what it takes for them to be able to move up. This is why forums like this summit must not be one-off events. Partners, please, let's continue working together. My strong encouragement is that Kenya will institutionalize this as an annual national platform, tracking progress and shaping reforms together. And tracking progress is very, very important towards sustainability. Whatever we do today, we must be able to build it up towards higher level. So as I conclude, allow me to sincerely appreciate our partners, the British Council, FCDO, RISA, and others for standing with Kenya in advancing innovation and skills. And let our call of action be clear and united. As government, we will continue to enable this and be able to continue convening such meetings. Let the industry co-create, co-tech, and co-innovate. Let universities produce graduates who are creators, innovators, and problem solvers. Because the future of Kenya will not be built by certificate alone. It will be built by entrepreneurship minds, bold ideas, and institutions willing to transform. So friends and colleagues, with all these remarks, I would like now to declare the Entrepreneurship Education Summit officially open. And I want to wish you all a very meaningful deliberation and look forward to actionable outcomes that will shape the Kenyan future towards the fast world economy. Thank you so much.